Welcome back everyone to this Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program Release 1.0. Now if you've watched the previous episode you'll know that Bob spent his day rummaging around the KSC for science, and he managed to accumulate 553 science, which actually is quite a lot for rummaging around KSC in a little buggy. But I wondered if, like you, we could go into space and get some more. So that's where we're going. Now I've spent all my science and I've built myself a small rover craft which is mostly hidden within this fairing here at the top. And so we have picked ourselves a couple of contracts to go to Minmus, and we are going to see exactly how much science Minmus will be giving us today. Now I've got Bob on board and Val is going to be piloting the orbital vessel, whilst Bob takes the lander down onto Minmus surface. Now the two contracts we have. Now the let's have a look. Let's close up the window there. Let's get open the contracts window. We've got a flyby of Minmus, which should obviously be very easy to do, and then we've got the explore Minmus contract, standard contract. So we've got to achieve orbit, which we will be doing. We have to transmit or recover science that was gathered in space around Minmus. That should be quite straightforward. The basic goal of our episode today is to land on Minmus, so we will be recovering some science data from Minmus's surface. So I'm quite looking forward to this. It's quite a straightforward mission, I hope. Hopefully it should not go with too much trouble. We will get a chance to do a couple of things that we're not that great at, which is first getting a rendezvous with Minmus. Now Minmus rendezvous are a little bit more difficult than the Mun because they usually require two maneuver nodes. One just to get you out to the orbital range of Minmus, and then one to change your height above orbit, because Minmus has an inclined orbit, and so it's very, very unlikely you will find yourself lucky enough to be intercepting Minmus when it is crossing the orbital plane of Kerbin. So we're going to have a go at that, and of course we're going to have a go at landing, and this is landing a little rover which you'll see in a few minutes time. And I'm going to try and make use of the suicide burn readout that you can see up here at the top, which is the altitude at which if you slam on the thrust you will reach the surface at exactly 0 meters per second. Now it takes a brave person to believe that is going to be true, so we probably will err on the side of caution and add a few hundred meters to the distance. But first things first, we need to get into orbit. Now we do have some science we can do right now, and we are going to gather as much science as possible, and we're not going to be doing an EVA report right now. So let's do a temperature scan. Wait for that to pop up. I think I clicked that. Try again. There we go. Right, okay, we'll keep that because it's not 100% transmittable, so we'll keep that. We'll do a materials study. Now, just to make the comparison reasonably equivalent, I'm only taking the science equipment that I had in Bob's science buggy. So we could have taken some of the orbital science equipment, but I decided just for this test we would just take the standard set of equipment we had last time. And like I say, we're not going to do an EVA report now, so let's just close that up, get our stats window up, and we're taking a shallower launch angle here, so you can just about make out that we've got some heating effects here, but we're getting near the top range of the atmosphere, so they shouldn't last too long. Just about to set off our second asparagus stage, cruising to a height of 100 kilometers, at which point we will circularize. So just about to separate now. Here we go. Away goes that asparagus stage. Just miss each other. So we've got a full tank in here. This is going to be our main circularization stage. We probably will dump that before we finish circularization. So let's just get ourselves out to about 40 kilometers, at which point we will stage and dump the fairing. That's the stage I've just brought down from the top there. So let's get right up to about here, where all of our atmospheric effects will have ceased. Apoapsis at 76 kilometers. 80. So we'll certainly be getting to out of the atmosphere, so it'll be getting to an orbital height. There we go. 85, 86. There we go. 50 kilometers is that last little bit of atmosphere there, so we should be quite safe now to dispose of our fairing. So let's do that now. There we go. Reveal the vehicle inside. There we go. Engine's just cut out. We're at our 100-kilometer apoapsis, or heading for. And this is the vehicle that I've built. It was inspired by a vehicle that Grumpworks built. It doesn't look anything like the one he built, but it was inspired by. He's very inspiring in that way. So thank you very much, Grumpworks, for inspiring the Grumpbug Lander. So let's get ourselves circularized. Use our KOS script to create that circularization node. Now the problem with it being quite so long is it does tend to flex quite a bit, and that is going to prove a little bit of a problem if we're not careful. So let's just, there we go, program's finished. So let's get ourselves over to our marker and just pre-align, because I found that the KOS script is a bit brute force and tends to overshoot quite a lot when trying to line up. There we go. So that's about ready. So let's run our node execution script. There we go. And while we are waiting for that, let's get our panels extended. There we go. There's 2. Got 4 of them. And the oh, that's a parachute. And there's the last one. Now you'll see right here at the back we've got our drum of experiments. We will have to collect the science and then reset those experiments, but we'll do that after we've circularized. So we've got an empty capsule at the moment. Both Bob and Val are in these 2 Mark I capsules, a little bit more comfortable for them for the journey. I didn't think poor old Bob would want to stay in here, but he is going to have to make an EVA, and EVAs are not his speciality, shall we say. So we should be waiting for our burn now at T-minus 27. So what we'll do is we'll just make use of time warp to bring us towards our node at 27 seconds. There we go. So we're all ready to go. And there we are. So let's get ourselves circularized, and once we've done that, Bob can pop out and pick up the science that we've already collected. So let's just pop out to map mode. There we go. You can see the orbit extending. Get our nav ball up. Getting through about a quarter of the delta V that we need to expend. 30 more seconds of burn, about a third of the way through. So that's about a half. So let's see how our crew is doing. Both of them seem happy enough. So that's 2/3 of the way through. 200 meters to go, 200 meters per second of delta V to go. And there's our launch stage now gone, and there's our transfer stage just completing the burn. Now it's not quite as powerful as that previous engine, the skipper engine, so we're not going to get a perfectly circular orbit because the calculation of time to manoeuvre will be slightly wrong, but it'll be good enough. We just need to be ready to transfer. So there we go, just 25 meters per second left. There we go. We still had about 24 meters per second remaining, so that was the miscalculation there. Let's just pop out to map mode. But we've got what, 95 and 106, so that'll do just fine. That'll do just fine. Back out of map mode, and let's get Bob out on an EVA to collect the science. We've got to go and get the science from Materials Bay, and we've also got a pressure scan. So let's just get him out. Let's go on EVA. There we go. There he is. So we will space to let go. R key to get his RCS on. He's just pushed off a little, so let's just pop back up. And then up. How far are we away? Oh, we're right underneath. Just nice and gently. There we go, just pop in. So let's take the data out and restore it. So there we go, it restores down. And now let's just pop the other side and pick up. Where are we? Pick up. Oh, there we go, the pressure data. That's in this little capsule in here. So let's take the pressure data, take the temperature data, and then let's pop back in, I think it's to the second capsule. So let's just find my way. There we go, that crew hatch there. And just bring us down. Bob is Bob is concentrating. He doesn't want to find himself. No, not that one. No, we're not boarding that one. Come on, that's Val. These things aren't that big. Oops, overshot. Let's back up. F grab. There we go. Grabbed. So let's get ourselves down the ladder and then back in. Oh, we've got an EVA already. Okay, well let's just board anyway. So we've got our science captured there, and now it's about time we did a transfer. So let's just take a quick save and let's go and do a set of transfer maneuvers out to Minmus. Now, getting to Minmus is a two-step activity. The primary reason being is that Minmus, this is Minmus, so let's select him as target. Minmus is on an inclined orbit, so the chances of you meeting Minmus here is relatively small. Now, the way to set up your Minmus encounter, I've been shown how to do, is line up Minmus, so it's over here at 3 o'clock, because you're going to meet it somewhere in here. So we're going to be pretty close to where it crosses the plane of the equator of Kerbin, but not quite. So let's just pop in a maneuver node down here. And this is the first maneuver node, and this should get us out to the orbit of Minmus. So let's pull on the prograde marker until our apoapsis reaches about 46,400. So let's go out 46,400. There we go, 48. And you can see we're pretty close to the encounter, but let's just pull ourselves back a little. There we go, 47,600. There we go, and it's actually quite a long way back there. Now, let's see, where will we be? So we're going to be here when Minmus is still over here. So the next thing to do is to bring ourselves so that we're a little bit closer to Minmus. And we can do that in one of two ways. You can either grab hold of your maneuver node. So let's just grab hold of it, make sure it's highlighted, and then just pull back. keep going until you think you are as close as you're going to get. There we go. We're pretty close there, actually. We're pretty close. But the other way is using precise node. So let's deliberately get this wrong and just go over here somewhere. You can use precise node to make these maneuver changes. And what we want to do, what we're doing by sliding the maneuver node around the orbit, is changing the time at which the maneuver node will occur. And that's the UT, Universal Time Note. It's the same as the universal time you can see up here in this window up here. So what we can do is we can go forward and backward in increments of 0.01, 0.1, 1, 10 and 100. So we want to bring it back in time, so we want to subtract increments. So let's start off by subtracting increments of 1. So let's right click this button just to subtract an increment until you get as close as you think you need to be. There we go. So let's say that is our best encounter. So there we go. We are going to be encountering Minmus. We're probably going to be coming up a little bit short as well. So we can use the same trick to push our prograde out as well. So we can choose an increment, and I think I'm going to choose quite a small increment, 0.01, and just left click to push our apoapsis out. And you can see that our Minmus periapsis, because it knows we're going to make an encounter, is coming down. So let's push that a little bit further. Now it's not so much of a problem that we have lost our encounter, because we still need to make another maneuver. So trying to perfect just this one maneuver node isn't going to help. We need to make two changes. One of them is going to be changing the plane, and that's best done out here when we're traveling pretty slow. So let's add another maneuver, and in this case we want to pull down until, there we go, if we look really closely, until we are almost on the plane with Minmus. So we're still a little bit high up. So let's pull down. There we go, and you can see there you can see that sort of kink that we've got as we've arrived a little bit early at Minmus, and then the gravity is pulling us back. Now there is a way to view this slightly differently, and that's to use the conics modes. This is known as conics mode 3, which is sort of an aggregate mode of your transitions from different spheres of influence. So that's where we enter the sphere of influence, that's where we leave the sphere of influence of Minmus. Now, if you go to Conics Mode 2, you can see this row of Conics modes down here at the bottom. If you go to Conics Mode 2, that shows your trajectory as you leave, relative to where you leave Minmus. Conics Mode 1 is relative to where you enter Minmus's sphere of influence, but I like to use Conics Mode 0. And Conics Mode 0 shows you your trajectory as if you arrived at Minmus right now. And as you can see, we're going to hit Minmus. We're going to be minus 35 kilometers inside its surface, and we're going to be traveling, we're going to be traveling pretty steeply coming down. Now we could try adjusting this right now and try fiddling both of these maneuver nodes to correct this final approach, but do you know what? The chances of me executing both of these nodes precisely, despite the name of the mod being precise node, is pretty slim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute the first node, and then we'll come back to executing the second node. So let's get ourselves aligned to our first node. Remember, we've now got a slightly lighter craft. So let's bring ourselves around. We've got 16 minutes before we arrive at the nodes. We've got plenty of time. So there we go, we're all lined up. So let's have a quick look at how Bob and Val are doing. There we go. They are on the sunny side of the street at the moment. Get ourselves all lined up. Let's get our KOS window up. And let's get ready to execute our next node. So there we go, let's run the node. So it's going to be 911 meters per second for the next node. We're going to be burning for about 106 seconds, and we will begin aligning, or the script will begin aligning in at a t-minus 113 seconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom right in here on our maneuver node, and we're going to click the warp to maneuver node, which will give us a 3-minute head start. So let's warp right round. Now we're quite close to curbing, so we can't go any faster than times 50. So we'll let it come around. We're going to be around the dark side when we carry out this maneuver, but we've got plenty of battery power. I put on quite a lot of batteries. So here we go. So that's 4 minutes to go. Beginning to slow down. So there we go. 3 minutes. So let's just realign. And what we're going to be doing an alignment at 113 seconds. So that's almost 2 minutes. So let's just speed up just a little bit and bring ourselves around to 2 minutes. There we go. So we're pretty much on alignment already. Yeah, we were close enough that we didn't actually have to make an alignment adjustment at all. Now, my script switches on the lights in order to activate any activatable parts that you want to do. So let's switch those off. We don't want to waste any electricity. And as most people know, gear is shown as deployed at launch, even though it isn't. So we will retract the already retracted gear. We have 90 seconds left to go, and we're going to be burning at T-minus 54. So let's just bring ourselves a little bit forward. You can see the mun in the background there. We'll see if we can harvest science from the mun using a vessel similar to this at a later date, although what I suspect I will do is next time we go science harvesting, we will cram on all of our possible science instruments, not wasting a single drop of science. Now, whilst we are on our way, what I think we'll do is we will save ourselves a battery, switch off one of our batteries and save it for an emergency, just in case we run out of charge at some point. Mike Aben points this out regularly, and thank you very much for doing so, because I have made that mistake several times of running out of charge and being dead in the water. And we wouldn't want both Bob and Val to be lost on this mission simply because we forgot that simple tip. So there we go, we're a quarter of a way through our burn, so let's watch as we extend our apoapsis. Now, one of the biggest problems you can get when trying to get to Minmus is an encounter with the mun. Now, if the mun had been sort of around here as we exited, or around here as we returned, you'd get a mun encounter, and that might actually mean you can't visualize your Minmus encounters. So I've parked the mun on this side simply by extending the time window on the launch pad by 3 days. It's got a 6-day orbit, so if you find it around here, a 3-day pause will bring it round to this side of its orbit. So that just gets the mun out of the way. The other option is actually to do this manoeuvre a lot more inefficiently back down here much earlier, to lift yourself or drop yourself below the orbit of the mun. But being patient, 3-day wait, I think Bob and Val were quite happy for that to be the case. So there we go, we've got 180 odd meters per second to go, and my script's notorious for coming up short, so even when this stops, we'll probably put in a little bit of extra just to finish off and make sure we get right out to our intended apoapsis. So we've got 30 to go. I'm not going to pick up this science right now. We can come back and get those scraps a little bit later. Oh, that's not so bad. Only 1.9 meters short. That was actually pretty good. So let's just trickle in just that tiniest little bit. There we go. And that brings us back. So you can see where our periapsis now. We are way over to as we the right as we see it. And we want to be coming down the left of Minmus. Minmus. So we've got plenty of time. We've got a day and 4 hours before we arrive at our nose. So now is a bit of a time to carry out a bit of adjustment. So let's have a look. So we want to move it a little bit earlier, so let's try moving ourselves forward. So let's try a 1 increment and just do a plus or a minus against prograde to see where that brings you. Well, that's brought us way over to this side. It's also brought us a long way down. So let's go to 0.1 and just go back the other way, and you can see. And there you can see where we've got an encounter with the Mun, and you can just see there's the encounter over there on our way back. So that's going to be a bit of a pain to visualise. So let's just keep going. Come back. And I think we've now. There we go, we are now back with our Minmus encounter. So there you go, we can see we are now more or less on the plane. There we go, you can see we're moving around. There we go. Now that, if you see it disappear, that's often because you have now lost the encounter. You can see we've lost our encounter, but we were going in the right direction, so let's see if we can bring us back. There we go. There we are. There we are. We are now back in encounter, and we're a long way out, but we are quite a long way up. So let's now right click our normal and bring ourselves down. You can see the periapsis here if you don't want to keep hovering over the periapsis on the chart. There we go. Let's go right in. I think we're a little bit low now. So let's try going much smaller increments and going back the other way. So let's now left click and bring our periapsis in. As you can see, we're now at 160 kilometers. Let's just keep going. You can see our total delta V is only 10 meters per second, so it's a trivial change. Let's move a little bit more into view. You can see we're a little bit under. So let's pull ourselves back up. There we go. Just moving in 0.01 increments until we've leveled out our approach. Whoops, a bit too far. There we go. We've got a periapsis of 93, so let's just keep bringing it in. 86, 82, there we go, 80 kilometers. I want to bring it down to about 40. So let's just keep putting on those little increments. You know, 56, 54, so we've got about 10 kilometers still to go. 41, 38, so that's pretty good. Again, we're probably not going to be doing a perfect maneuver again. So we will have to make some final adjustments when we arrive at Minmus. So that's our new maneuver node. We can see it's going to be 10 meters per second. We've used the increment buttons here and the up and down increments here, plus and minus, left and right, to give us a pretty good approach and a pretty level. There we go, maybe we're a little bit high, but a pretty level orbit we're going to get. But we can correct that when we get there. So let's just position ourselves. Now for the journey, you could position yourselves, well, you could position yourself on the maneuver node, but in order to get the maximum light on our panels, it's probably best just to face north-south. There we go. That way, as we go round our orbit, at least two of our panels will be facing the sun. Alternatively, we could just point face on if you knew exactly which direction you were going to be facing. But this is a good default, very good default position. We'll have two of our panels facing sun, and we've got, you see, there it is, it's charging up quite nicely. That slight difference there is actually probably, whichever one of these batteries it is probably whichever one of these batteries we switched off, because not only does it not discharge, it won't charge up either, and of course it's going to be the last one, isn't it? Oh, there we go. So let's charge that one up, and we know it's this one. So there we go. Let's get those to charge right up. There you go. So that's charging right up. So let's save that one, and we know it's going to be this one, so it's in line with that one. So let's save that one. So that's our two batteries, our two emergency batteries saved. And let's go back to map view, and let's now close in on our maneuver node. So let's click the warp to maneuver node. And click it again to pick up the additional time warp. Now there we go, we've picked up our encounter with Mun again, but we know this maneuver node is okay, so let's trust in precise node. So let's hopefully get it right. I think we got a little bit too close to the node there. We're going to have to go right round. Let's get the node script running. There we go. So let's get ourselves lined up. Come on. Got another 14 seconds just to line ourselves up. This is the problem with it being a long rocket, rather overshot, and now we're wobbling around. There we go. There's our encounter. So what do we end up with? Remember, we're in conics mode 0, so it's over here. Didn't do too good, so we're probably going to have to improve that approach. We were wobbling around a little bit too much when we fired our engines. So and we've moved off our maneuver node now. So let's just put a extra maneuver node in here. Let's move it up here somewhere. Not on the purple line, on the blue line. So the thin blue line, there we go. So we've got a blue maneuver bubble. Add our maneuver node. It's going to have to be very, very gentle. We're on the right. Plane. So let's just see if a tiny prograde. There we go. Coming down. See the periapsis down here. So let's just do a tiny prograde burn. It's going to be trivial. Tiny prograde burn. Down to 126. So let's go up to 0.1. 90, 76, 64, 44. That'll do just nicely. 44. So there we go. 1 meter per second. So what we'll do, we won't actually use the maneuver node for this. We know it's going to be absolutely trivial. It's entirely on prograde, and I'm moving towards retrograde. So let's turn back the other way. So let's delete the maneuver node, plonk ourselves right on our prograde marker, which we can use the prograde bubble for. Get Val to do a little bit of work, because Bob's going to be doing a lot of work shortly. And then just gently tap. There we go, 51. Do you know what? That'll do just fine. That'll do just fine. So, all we have to do now is wait for Val and Bob to arrive at Minmus.